Oh, McQueen. Crazy McQueen. McQueen and I got along pretty good. McQueen looked at me kind of like an older brother.
James Garner, the legendary star of Maverick and the Rockford Files, was known for his wit, charm, and honesty. But there was one story he kept locked away for decades. His time on The Great Escape wasn't just a cinematic milestone. It was the backdrop for a fiery clash with Steve McQueen, one of Hollywood's most enigmatic stars. Now, long after Garner's passing, his candid revelations about McQueen have surfaced, exposing a side of their relationship few could have imagined. What secrets did Garner take to the grave? The truth is finally out. But before we get into these stunning revelations, it's important to explore the early events that brought about the connection between James Garner and Steve McQueen. The untold battles of James Garner. James Garner wasn't just a Hollywood icon. He was a man who overcame extraordinary challenges to become one of the most beloved actors of his generation. Known for his effortless charisma, he brought life to characters like the sly gambler Brett Maverick and the unflappable Jim Rockford, leaving an indelible mark on both television and film. Born James Scott Bumgarner on April 7, 1928 in Denver, Oklahoma, Garner's early years were anything but easy. Growing up during the Great Depression, he lost his mother at just 5 years old when she tragically passed away during a botched abortion. His father, Weldon Bumgarner, owned a hardware store, but struggled to provide for Garner and his 2 older brothers after the loss of his wife. When a fire destroyed the family hardware store, Weldon turned to booze, and the effects were devastating. Garner and his brothers endured neglect and abuse, often being forced to sing for their meals and punished if they refused. Eventually, Weldon remarried, but the boys' suffering only deepened. Garner described his stepmother Wilma as cruel, recounting incidents where she reportedly hit him with tree branches and dressed him in women's clothing as a form of humiliation. At the age of 14, Garner could take no more. During a violent confrontation, he fought back, overpowering Wilma in self-defense. At that moment, his father intervened and prevented further escalation, but the damage was done. Garner later admitted that had his father not stepped in, he might have gone too far. Not long after, Weldon abandoned the family altogether, leaving James and his brothers to fend for themselves. Despite his chaotic upbringing, Garner's resilience carried him forward. He took on a variety of odd jobs, including a short stint in the Merchant Navy that ended due to chronic seasickness. He even worked as an underwear model for a time, an ironic footnote in the life of a man destined for Hollywood stardom. In 1950, Garner was drafted into the U.S. Army and deployed to Korea with the 5th Regimental Combat Team of the 24th Division. His time in the Korean War was grueling. Just 2 days after arriving, he was injured by shrapnel from a mortar attack, and months later, he was wounded again, this time by friendly fire. These injuries earned him 2 Purple Hearts, though Garner rarely spoke about his service, preferring to downplay his heroism. A lesser-known but fascinating quirk of Garner's life was his intense aversion to garlic, which he developed during his military service. This sensitivity played an unexpected role in his survival. On one occasion, his unit's meal was unknowingly poisoned, but Garner avoided it entirely because of its garlic content. Garner's quick instincts also proved life-saving. One freezing night, while on guard duty, he caught the faint scent of garlic in the air. Knowing that enemy soldiers often consumed garlic-heavy diets, he realized that they were close. He alerted his unit, and they successfully ambushed the enemy, likely preventing a deadly attack. After returning home from the war, Garner picked up odd jobs, working as a gas station attendant and even laying carpets with his father. One day he crossed paths with Paul Gregory, a man who recognized something special in him. Gregory would eventually become a talent agent and encourage Garner to try acting. Initially, Garner brushed off Gregory's suggestion, but years later, when he spotted Gregory's name on an agency sign, he decided to reconnect. That chance meeting marked the beginning of his acting career. Gregory secured Garner his first role in the Kane Mutiny court-martial, where he appeared as a non-speaking member of the court. Though the role was small, it opened the door to bigger opportunities. Garner went on to land a part in Sayonara, alongside Marlon Brando, but his big break came in 1957, when he was cast as Brett Maverick in the Western series Maverick. The show's success wasn't a foregone conclusion. Many doubted it could compete with the likes of The Ed Sullivan Show and The Steve Allen Show. But Garner, with his natural charm and sharp comedic timing, brought something unique to the role. Within 2 years, Maverick became a runaway hit, solidifying Garner as a household name and proving to Hollywood that his talent was unmatched. However, Garner's departure from the show was motivated by more than just his newfound fame. Why James Garner left Maverick? James Garner quickly became the heart and soul of Maverick, charming audiences with his sly wit and effortless charisma as Brett Maverick. The show was a massive hit, and Garner's career was soaring. But in 1960, a writer's strike brought Hollywood to a halt, setting the stage for a dramatic conflict between Garner and the studio that would ultimately change his career. With the strike, production on Maverick ground to a halt. No scripts meant no new episodes, and as far as Warner Brothers was concerned, no work for Garner. Despite his rising stardom, he was earning just $1,250 a week. When the studio abruptly laid him off, citing the lack of scripts, Garner felt betrayed. The decision ignited a fire in him, one that pushed him to take a stand against the studio's unfair practices. Feeling undervalued and mistreated, Garner sued Warner Brothers for breach of contract, a bold move that shocked Hollywood. But Garner was no stranger to playing high-stakes gambles, both on-screen and off. His case was strong and he ultimately won the lawsuit. The victory sent a clear message about his determination to fight for what he believed was right. Warner Brothers tried to make amends, offering Garner a raise and a new contract. But the damage was done. Garner had grown disillusioned with the studio system, likening himself to a puppet controlled by the whims of executives. Determined to take charge of his career, he made the daring decision to walk away from Maverick. Despite losing its star, Warner Brothers wasn't ready to let go of Maverick. The show's popularity endured, and Jack Kelly, who played Bart Maverick, remained. But Kelly's character didn't have the same magnetism as Garner's, so the studio set out to find a replacement, a near look-alike to step into Garner's boots. Enter Robert Colbert, a relatively unknown actor who bore a striking resemblance to Garner. Warner Brothers dressed him in the same wardrobe and coached him to mimic Garner's mannerisms, renaming his character Brent Maverick. Colbert, however, was uncomfortable with the plan, joking that he'd rather play a woman named Brenda than be a copy of James Garner. The studio also introduced another Maverick, Bo Maverick, portrayed by a young Roger Moore, who would later become James Bond. While the idea of multiple Maverick cousins sounded promising, the show missed a golden opportunity by keeping the characters in separate storylines. This fractured approach hindered the series, and eventually, both Moore and Colbert departed, leaving Jack Kelly to carry the show alone in its final season. Originally, the studio had a different vision for Bo Maverick. They wanted the character to be worldly and sophisticated, with a British accent to match. For this role, they approached Sean Connery, a rising star. Connery flew to Hollywood to discuss the part, but turned it down, choosing instead to focus on bigger opportunities, like the James Bond franchise that would cement his place in cinematic history. Roger Moore, who had been starring in The Alaskans, took over as Bo Maverick. Interestingly, The Alaskans also faced challenges during the writer's strike, leading Warner Brothers to recycle old Maverick scripts for the show. This cost-cutting measure didn't go unnoticed. Moore himself recognized the recycled plots, and the series was canceled after just 37 episodes. Though Garner's departure marked the end of an era for Maverick, he wasn't done with the character. In 1994, Richard Donner directed a film adaptation of Maverick, with Mel Gibson stepping into the role of Brett Maverick. The film captured the spirit of the original series, blending adventure and humor with Gibson channeling Garner's charm. Fittingly, James Garner joined the cast as Marshall Zane Cooper, a role that would take on greater significance by the film's end. Garner's presence brought a sense of nostalgia and continuity, deepening the connection between the film and its TV roots. Interestingly, Paul Newman had initially been considered for the role of Zane Cooper, but when he declined, the part went to Garner, a poetic twist given his ties to the Maverick legacy. The 1994 Maverick film was both a critical and commercial success. Audiences and critics alike praised Garner's seamless return to the franchise, celebrating the way he once again brought the Maverick world to life. However, it was Garner's earlier breakout role in The Great Escape that cemented his stardom. But behind the scenes of that iconic film, a fierce rivalry unfolded, leaving a lasting mark on its production. The rivalry behind The Great Escape. After his success in Maverick, James Garner stepped into a new challenge with the 1963 war drama, The Great Escape. Based on a true story, the film chronicled a daring prison break by Allied prisoners of war during World War II. Directed by John Sturges, the movie became a defining moment in Garner's career, showcasing his ability to portray a resourceful and heroic character. It also solidified his place alongside Hollywood greats like Steve McQueen, whose role in the film would become one of his most iconic. The story unfolds in a German POW camp where Allied prisoners, including Americans, British, and Australians, are held under heavy surveillance. Determined to escape, the prisoners rally under the leadership of Big X, played by Richard Attenborough. Each prisoner brings their own expertise to the plan. Garner's character, Henley, nicknamed the Scrounger, charms his way into acquiring the necessary supplies for the escape. Meanwhile, McQueen's cooler King captivates audiences with his rebellious spirit, and Charles Bronson's Tunnel King endures claustrophobic struggles to dig the escape tunnels. Despite numerous setbacks, including the discovery of one tunnel, the group remains undeterred. Their collective determination results in one of the most daring escape attempts ever seen on screen. However, the harsh realities of war overshadow their triumph. Many of the prisoners are hunted down by the Gestapo, with tragic consequences for most of the escapees. The film's gripping story and unforgettable characters earned it a lasting place in cinematic history. While The Great Escape was loosely based on Paul Brickhill's true account, the screenplay was crafted to highlight the talents of its ensemble cast. The result was a film filled with suspense, camaraderie, and unyielding hope that resonated with audiences worldwide. On set, Steve McQueen, still on the rise as a Hollywood star, was determined to leave a lasting impression. His rivalry with Garner became evident as McQueen pushed for more screen time, particularly frustrated by the charm and resourcefulness of Garner's Scrounger, a role that often stole the spotlight. Tensions grew between McQueen and the director, John Sturges, as McQueen demanded changes to make his character more prominent. Yet, McQueen's performance, particularly the now iconic motorcycle escape scene, proved he didn't need additional screen time to shine. The film's strength lay in its ensemble cast. Garner's charm, Attenborough's leadership, Bronson's grit, and James Coburn's dry wit all contributed to the story's emotional impact. When the film debuted in 1963, it received a mix of critical reactions. Some, like the New York Times' Bosley Crowther, dismissed the film as overly mechanical and lacking emotional depth. Others, including Time magazine, praised its realistic depiction of the German setting, the well-paced narrative, and its impeccable casting. Despite its divisive reviews, The Great Escape went on to become a timeless classic, beloved by audiences and celebrated for its thrilling story of bravery and sacrifice. But what did James Garner really think of Steve McQueen's on-set behavior? James Garner finally breaks silence on Steve McQueen. Hollywood has always been a hub of glitz, glamour, and inevitably, drama. From the golden age of cinema to the present day, rivalries and feuds between stars have captivated fans and fueled countless headlines. Fueled by jealousy, ego, and competition, these conflicts often reveal the human side of larger-than-life personalities. James Garner, known for his charm, easygoing nature, and professionalism, wasn't entirely immune to Hollywood feuds. Though he generally maintained positive relationships with his colleagues, his feelings towards Steve McQueen were notably less amicable. Despite working together on the iconic film The Great Escape, their relationship was marked by tension and clashing personalities. On the surface, the two seemed friendly during filming, but McQueen's aloof and often eccentric behavior created distance between them. McQueen, preferring solitude, stayed in a private chalet and arrived on set in a Rolls-Royce, adding to the divide. Garner, ever the straight shooter, later expressed his candid opinion of McQueen in his 2011 memoir, The Garner Files. He described McQueen as a pain in the ass, comparing his behavior to Marlon Brando's unpredictability. Garner went further, suggesting that McQueen was more of a movie star than a true actor, relying on a carefully cultivated persona rather than depth and versatility. He believed this approach limited McQueen's potential as a performer. Garner's frustrations weren't limited to McQueen's acting, but also extended to his on-set behavior, which included tantrums and disruptions. At one point, things escalated to such a degree that director John Sturges considered shifting the film's focus to make Garner the central character instead of McQueen. Although flattered, Garner declined the offer, recognizing the chaos such a drastic change would cause. Instead, he addressed McQueen directly, learning that McQueen was unhappy with his character, feeling it lacked heroism and excitement. Sturges reportedly added motorcycle stunt scenes and revised the character to make it more dynamic, a change many believe worked in McQueen's favor. Still, Garner saw McQueen's demands as unnecessary and self-serving, leaving a lasting impression of his co-star's difficult nature. In the Garner files, Garner shared deeply personal and honest anecdotes about his career and relationships, offering an unfiltered glimpse into his life in Hollywood. Alongside his reflections on McQueen, he criticized movie mogul Jack Warner as one of the rudest men he'd ever met, and called out Charlton Heston for his stiff acting style. However, it was his relationship with McQueen that garnered particular attention. Garner described McQueen as insecure, prone to jealousy, and at times difficult to deal with. Garner even revealed that McQueen's wife, Nyla, had confided in him about her husband's struggles with insecurity and unfounded suspicions of infidelity. Despite this, Garner maintained that McQueen wasn't inherently malicious, but rather a deeply insecure individual whose behavior was shaped by his fears. Garner often saw himself as a mentor to McQueen, much like an older brother, but McQueen's insecurities sometimes strained their relationship. In one instance, McQueen falsely accused Garner of being unfaithful to Niall, a claim Garner dismissed as baseless and a product of McQueen's anxieties. The memoir also sheds light on Garner's interactions with another Great Escape co-star, Charles Bronson. Garner's experience with Bronson was far less positive. He described Bronson as bitter and belligerent, recounting an uncomfortable incident during a poker game at his home. Bronson, refusing to honor a bet, attempted to withhold winnings from a struggling Hollywood extra. Garner, always one to stand up for what he believed was right, insisted Bronson pay up, resulting in a heated argument that nearly turned physical. Although the immediate tension was resolved, the bad blood between the two lingered. Even years later, during a chance meeting at a restaurant, neither man could let go of their past grievances. Both acknowledged their lingering resentment, a reminder that some Hollywood feuds leave scars that never fully heal. In the Garner files, Garner wasn't afraid to peel back the layers of his polished, all-American persona to reveal the complexities beneath. While audiences adored his affable, grounded charm, Garner also shared the grittier truths of his life. Among the most surprising revelations was his experimentation with substances, including MJ and white stuff. He even recounted a memorable experience doing lines with the late comedian John Belushi, offering a glimpse into the more rebellious side of his otherwise grounded persona. The memoir also delved into Garner's political beliefs, which were a significant part of his identity. A proud liberal, Garner admired figures like Adlai Stevenson and Barack Obama, and his values often influenced the roles he chose and the way he approached his career. When reflecting on his body of work, Garner held The Notebook and the Americanization of Emily in especially high regard, considering them the finest films of his career. He found particular satisfaction in the growing appreciation for the Americanization of Emily, which gained cult status over the years, despite being underappreciated at the time of its release. Although Garner had a soft spot for films like Murphy's Romance and Grand Prix, he was refreshingly honest about the rest of his filmography. He didn't shy away from admitting that many of his movies were mediocre at best, and some, in his words, outright bad. Yet, despite his charm and success, Garner's most iconic role in the Rockford Files came with its own set of battles, both on and off the screen, the struggles behind Rockford's success. In the mid-1970s, Roy Huggins, the creator of the original Maverick series, had an idea to reinvent one of his most iconic creations. Teaming up with Stephen J. Cannell, Huggins developed The Rockford Files, a modern-day detective series that would draw on the charm and wit of Maverick. At its core was Jim Rockford, a private investigator brought to life by the charismatic James Garner. Garner, already a household name from his role in Maverick, found a new opportunity to shine as Rockford, and his portrayal quickly earned him an Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actor. Premiering in 1974, The Rockford Files quickly became a beloved staple of television, drawing audiences into the gritty underbelly of Los Angeles, where Jim Rockford solved cases from his humble mobile home. Rockford wasn't your typical action hero. Unlike the invincible and polished protagonists of the era, he was flawed, often down on his luck, and incredibly relatable. Living in a trailer on the beach, dressed in rumpled clothes, and relying on wit as much as skill, Rockford embodied a kind of everyman appeal that resonated with viewers. Adding to the show's charm was Garner's commitment to authenticity. He insisted on performing many of his stunts, including high-octane car chases that became a hallmark of the series. Garner's passion for cars, rooted in his experience filming the 1966 racing movie Grand Prix, found its way into the Rockford Files, where Jim's iconic gold Pontiac Firebird became as much a star as he was. However, this dedication to realism came at a steep cost. Over time, the physical toll of the stunts began to wear on Garner's body, particularly his knees and back. By the 6th season, doctors warned him to cut back on the physical demands of the role, a warning that coincided with the series' end in 1980. The decision to conclude the Rockford Files wasn't just about Garner's health. The show's production costs were notoriously high, thanks to its frequent action sequences, expensive location shoots, and recurring damage to the Pontiac Firebird. Maintaining the car, often damaged during stunts, required regular repairs and replacements. Even smaller details, like Jim Rockford's memorable personalized license plate 853 OKG, added to the production's meticulous attention to detail and its expenses. Guest stars, who became more prominent in later seasons, also drove up costs. Despite its challenges, the show thrived on the strength of its writing and creativity. A highlight of each episode was Rockford's answering machine message, a clever, often humorous gag that became a signature of the series. As the show progressed, coming up with new and inventive messages became a challenge for the writers. To keep things fresh, the production team opened up the process to the entire NBC building, inviting employees to submit ideas. Behind the scenes, the Rockford Files served as a launching pad for future talent. Notably, David Chase, who would go on to create The Sopranos, was part of the writing team. The show's theme music, composed by Mike Post, also became iconic, cementing Post's reputation as one of television's great composers. Though The Rockford Files was a critical and commercial success, its production faced hurdles beyond the physical toll on Garner and the escalating costs. Garner found himself in a lengthy legal battle with Universal Studios over unpaid royalties, a fight that lasted 8 years. Garner ultimately won, securing a significant financial settlement, though the exact amount was never disclosed. Despite these challenges, Garner's commitment to the Rockford Files remained steadfast, even beyond the original series. In the 1990s, he reprised the role of Jim Rockford in 6 made-for-television movies, much to the delight of fans. However, during this period, Garner faced personal and physical struggles, including major heart surgery, which underscored the toll his long career had taken on him. The show's legacy also extended to attempts at spin-offs and reboots, though these projects never quite captured the magic of the original. In 1977, NBC tried to develop a spin-off called Gabby and Gandy, featuring Isaac Hayes and Louis Gossett Jr. as a dynamic detective duo. A backdoor pilot for the series aired as an episode of The Rockford Files titled Just Another Polish Wedding, failed to generate the anticipated buzz, and the project was shelved. Another spin-off attempt centered on the character Richie Brockelman, played by Dennis Dugan. While the character made his debut in a TV movie, Richie Brockelman, The Missing 24 Hours, and later appeared in The Rockford Files, his standalone series, Richie Brockelman, Private Eye, lasted only 6 episodes. In 2010, fans of The Rockford Files were thrilled to hear about plans for a reboot. Dermot Mulroney, known for his work in Roma, the project involved well-known producers, including Steve Carell and David Shore, best known for creating House. Alan Tudyk and Beau Bridges were cast in supporting roles, further raising expectations for the reboot. However, the pilot failed to capture the spirit of the original series. Critics pointed to lackluster direction by Michael Watkins and an underwhelming portrayal of Rockford by Mulroney. Dawn Perouse, known for her work on Prison Break, attempted to salvage the pilot through extensive re-editing, but her efforts weren't enough to convince NBC executives. The reboot was ultimately shelved, leaving fans disappointed but still hopeful for a successful revival in the future. However, behind the effortless charm and charisma of Jim Rockford, James Garner carried hidden struggles that told a very different story. James Garner's hidden struggles revealed. James Garner was more than just a gifted actor. He was a cherished icon of Hollywood, Known for his charming portrayals of characters like Brett Maverick and Jim Rockford, he captured the hearts of audiences with his wit, warmth, and authenticity. Off-screen, he earned respect not only for his professionalism, but also for his enduring marriage to Lois Clark, a rarity in Hollywood. Unlike many of his peers, Garner maintained a stable and loving relationship throughout his life, a testament to his grounded nature. James Garner reportedly faced significant health challenges later in life. A series of issues, including a debilitating stroke, gradually slowed down his once vibrant career. His dedication to performing his stunts, particularly during his years on the Rockford Files, left him with numerous injuries that required multiple surgeries on his back and knees. These physical demands compounded over time, forcing him to step back from the grueling pace of his prime years. Garner spoke candidly about the cascading impact of his injuries, describing how one health issue often led to another. Chronic sinus infections, heart surgery in 1988, and the lingering effects of a 2008 stroke further complicated his condition. Despite these setbacks, Garner approached his health struggles with the same resilience that defined his on-screen characters. His toughness was also evident in real life, as seen in a harrowing road rage incident he recounted during a 1981 interview. After a minor car accident, an enraged driver attacked him through the window of his car. The altercation escalated, leaving Garner with broken bones and a concussion after being repeatedly kicked while on the ground. Even so, he stood his ground, demonstrating remarkable courage in a frightening situation. In later years, Garner found himself pushing through the physical challenges of age on the set of Space Cowboys, where he joined Clint Eastwood, Donald Sutherland, and Tommy Lee Jones to portray a group of retired astronauts called back into action. The role was demanding for the older cast, and injuries weren't uncommon. Garner dislocated his shoulder during filming, with Eastwood, no stranger to shoulder injuries himself, stepping in to provide first aid. Yet, Garner brushed off the incident, insisting it was simply a clumsy accident and not a reflection of his age. The film's most memorable moment of vulnerability, however, wasn't physical, but comedic. In one scene, the four actors exposed their bare backsides to the camera, a lighthearted reminder of the passage of time that even Hollywood's legends couldn't escape. James Garner's health continued to decline after his stroke in 2008, and on July 19, 2014, he passed away at the age of 86. The cause of death was determined to be a heart attack. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, comment, and turn on post notifications to stay updated with our latest content.